today we're gonna rate every town in World of Warcraft by the metric of livability. And this is not from the perspective of the god-killing main character. No, this is from the perspective of just a normal guy living in Azeroth. I'm looking at this as a real-life scenario. Imagine if you actually lived in this town. And for this video, my definition of a town will be a place with at least an inn or a house and at a minimum 2 non-military buildings. Lastly, it needs to have NPCs which are friendly to at least one out of the 2 factions. And it also have to be named on the map. But that's enough talking, let's get into the video. Starting off at the tippy top of Eastern Kingdom, the ruins of Silvermoon. And let's just start with the most obvious thing. In the main part there are only 2 houses and 1 training location. And looking at the surrounding area, you can see it's a very nice environment. And going inside the inn, you can find pretty much anything you could ever need. A bar, a kitchen, beds, and even a self-cleaning broom. Truly amazing. So on the simple fact, livability, I would rate it very highly, giving it probably a 9 out of 10. Yes, there are giant walls around this whole place, but you can't forget these are the ruins of the city. Right next to it, you have a hostile area full of rogue robots and dangerous enemies. There are lots of guards everywhere you go. I would still consider it very safe, giving it final score of an A-tier place to live. Just go south of Silvermoon and you'll reach Fairbreeze Village. Even though it's very small, I would still consider it a nice place to live, very close to Silvermoon. It's made up of 2 small buildings, 1 large and 1 small building, the inn and 1 personal house. And just like any other Blood Elf place, it has a very high standard of living, with nice beds, offices, kitchens, bars, and everything you could ask for. You might think it's safe too, but not really, because just around the corner there's a giant scar through the entire environment filled with undead. So if one of these undeads just decided to walk over, they could easily kill you. But on the other side, there's also lots of guards everywhere. So because of the lower safety but relatively similar standard of living, I will give it a C tier. Next up is obviously Silvermoon City, one of the biggest cities in the entire game. And obviously it's very good, because it has all the amenities you could ask for and more. They have banks, auction house, multiple inns, all the professions, and probably quite low house prices due to most of the population being killed off in the war. And for even better, this is probably the best decorated city in the entire game, with amazing interiors. So I can guarantee you, if you were a normal person moving here in-game and worked in one of the shops or a forge for example, you would probably live in the top 1% of living standards in the entirety of Azeroth. And when it came to safety, it has a similar problem, the giant scar going through the whole map. But because it's the main city, it's full with guards, and I can pretty much assume this part has been cleared out of all the infectious monsters, and the scar has been sealed off. I will give it a A-tier place to live, because you're still at some level of risk. But going south to a not equally as tranquil place to live, Tranquiline, located in the middle of the Ghostlands. Probably one of the worst places to live in the entire game. Simply looking at the surroundings, every single village around this place has been totally wiped out, full of undead. And if it wasn't for the guards, this one would probably be wiped out too. And on top of that, they're located literally a stone's throw away from the scar. And for amenities, they have a broken down inn and a broken down shopping area. Everything is either broken, breaking down, or simply thrown out. I don't know why anyone would want to live in this place. I'm sorry to all the Tranquil fans, but this place is going down to F tier. Literally 0 redeeming traits. But in a more livable space, in the north of Terrasfall Glades, you'll find the small town of Hearthglen, surrounded by a huge wall filled with towers and military bases, but also homes for normal civilians. And I need to say, this is probably the safest place in all of Lordaeron. They have castles, mage towers, and the whole army is stationed there. On safety, it's very good, but livability, outside, it's kinda bad, but inside, it's green, lush, and beautiful. With big and nice homes for everybody, a forge, tailoring, pretty much anything a big town would need. But they're still missing an auction house and a bank. But those are only for the biggest cities. I would give this place an S tier, but for the simple fact it's surrounded by a pretty much unhospitable environment and very close to hostile areas, I will give it an A tier, because at least inside the walls, it's very nice. Go a bit south and enter Anderhall, and let's start on the Horde side. Undead have different standards from humans, so I will approach this from the perspective of an undead. 2 normal houses and 1 inn, and it doesn't have a forge and very few profession trainers. The actual standard of living in these houses are pretty average, but that isn't the main problem. I think the main problem is that half the town is on fire. So if you live here, you'll be under constant siege and having to fight for your life. And if you ever leave the town walls, you're not even sure if you're gonna make it home alive. So for a pretty average standard of living, but terrible safety, you could be attacked and killed at any times, I will have to put this in E tier. Just going to the other side of town. You have a totally different environment, with green grass, blue roofs, and a very nice guard tower. Like the other places, it doesn't really have the desired amenities, but it has a lot more houses and an actual, as I said, guard tower. So I would say, for the simple fact it's a bigger town, 7 homes, 1 stable, and 1 inn, and the aforementioned guard tower. Due to the stable, I would say the standard of living on this side is probably higher, but on the other side, there's no wall facing towards the infected part of the city, even though it has a high standard of living than the other side due to the stable. I would still consider it a really bad place to live, due to it not having a wall facing towards the infected part of the city. So I'm also gonna put this at E tier. Next up, go to Brill. Next up, go to Undercity. But going to the next location, Seplar, in the middle of Silverpine Forest. Another small town with 2 houses. 1 inn and 1 for personal use. But you can also count the old tomb if you want. It has a flight path, a forge, unlike a lot of other places around the game, and a couple of profession trainers. Very nice. I need to remind you, this is of course an undead city, so you need to judge it from undead standards. And by undead standards, I would rate it pretty good, due to all the amenities and also the fact that it's surrounded by walls and they even have their personal catapults. So I will give it a B tier. Going over to Gilnas, which was quite recently repopulated. So the first stop is obviously Stormglen Village, a very small village at the edge of the map, but unfortunately it has pretty much 0 amenities. It's quite large with about 4 buildings, pretty much all of them are homes of people. There are no shops, no innkeepers, no flight path, nothing, but still a quite decent village, and I have to just throw it into C tier. It's livable, but nothing special. Going to the next major city on the list, Gilnas. In the city, you can find most things you can need. A bank, stables, class trainers, but unfortunately no auction house or, for that sake, flight path. Why didn't they add it? I have no idea. But anyway, going through the city, it has all the amenities, but the simple state of the city, due to it being abandoned for years and years and years, is pretty low. And on top of that, it's constantly raining here. There's trash all over the floor, broken things in the corners of the houses, papers blowing in the wind, and it's pretty unpleasant place to live. But on the safety front, it's all right too. It has a moat surrounding the whole thing, a large military base, and multiple defensive points. But as you all know, a couple of years ago the whole city fell to a werewolf infection, so you can pretty easily critique the defenses. I would still rate it higher than most places in the game. For livability, I need to give it a B tier. It's run down and it was just abandoned. Next up, Sludgefield is the next one on the list. An undead city, and I can even admit it. Even for undead, it would be pretty terrible to live here. But let's go through it. There are 3 main houses, 1 inn, and 2 residential. and the rest of it are just farms, run by slave labor. Very nice. And there's constant amounts toxic waste going out everywhere. It was actually so bad that you have a whole quest line to take down the leader to make it more livable. On top of it being a very terrible place to live, due to slavery, toxic waste and everything else, it has pretty much no amenities. It has an inn and a stable, no mailbox, no forge, no bank, not even a flight master. So I would have to throw this guy into F tier. Now up next, Terran Mill, a classic town from Classic. How is it holding up in retail? It's a small town, only comprised of 3 buildings, 1 lab, 1 inn, and 1 just normal house. It has pretty much everything you can ask for a small town: an inn, a mailbox, a stable, a forge, profession trainers, and a flight master. Of course, no bank and auction house, but those are only preserved for large cities. As I said earlier, this is an undead town, so you have to judge it from undead standards, and by undead standards, I would say it's pretty nice. With big homes, big beds, and everything you could ask for. And for safety, I would rate it pretty highly too. It has walls on just one side, otherwise the entire zone is horde controlled, so there's not much to worry about. That also goes with Sludgefield, putting it pretty squarely in B tier, for undeads of course. Next on the list, the small village of Tusk, just by the shore. It's very small, but it's still a village, with 1 inn, 1 normal house and a tower. And for amenities, it has a flight path and a blacksmith, but otherwise it's pretty barren. Standard living wise, I would rate it the average. It's a small fishing village with everything you could possibly need. Also a flight path you can travel around how much you want. And secondly, for safety, I would also rate it pretty highly, due to it having only 1 entrance, a road going down the mountain. So it's easy to defend and there's guards everywhere. So I would rate both of them pretty good. But there's nothing truly impressive about this place. It's very average, so I will give it a C tier. Next up, back to the Alliance, Mapil Harbor. A classic place from Classic once again, but this time it's flooded, so I will remove some points. Otherwise, it's pretty large with a castle, walls on the main side towards the land, a harbor, a flight path, a whole actual large forge building, multiple homes for normal people, and an inn. So pretty much everything a normal person could ask for from a town. But the main negative is obviously the whole town is flooded underwater. But to sum up the points, standard of living is under average due to its flooding, but it has pretty much all the amenities a normal person could ask for, so that boosts it up a bit, but still under average. On the defense, it's high due to it being surrounded on all sides towards land with walls, and the rest of it is towards the water. So if you were to attack this place, it would be extremely difficult. On top of that, they have a giant castle in the middle of the town. I'll give that D tier just because it's all flooded. Next on the list would be Thundermar in the Twilight Highlands, with pretty much anything you could ask for: inn, mailbox, stable, and flight master. This village has a total of 8 houses, most of them being residential, but they also have an inn, a shop, and also a stable. And simply going into all of these houses, all of them very clean, very nice, and very beautiful. So pretty much anything you could ask for. Livability, I would rate it very high, but safety, not so. If you head around, you can see the other villages surrounding it, and they're all destroyed. And also, on the hill close by, there's a giant ogre village, and on the other side of the river, there's a horde orc base. And because there's no walls on this village, I would say it's not that safe. Putting it at E tier, because you might live well, but at any moment, you might get under attack. Balsamar is another dwarf village, with pretty much everything you could ask for once again, with an inn, mailbox, stable, a forge, and also profession trainers. It's also a medium-sized village with about 5 houses, all very comfy and nice inside the hills, with more than enough space for everybody. So standard of living is amazing. And also safety. Outside the fact that in the former lake, there's a Twilight Hammer cult that later get wiped out. Outside of that, there's no enemies around you, making it very safe. But because, as many other places, there's no walls and no guards, I have to put it in C tier because there's not that much safety. Kernos, another dwarf village just outside of Ironforge, with, as I have said this many times before, pretty much anything you can need. They have inn, mailbox, stable, forge, and profession trainers, and also a flight master. This little town has made up of 3 main buildings and also a bunch of tents. One of the buildings, an inn, a forging building, and also a gnomish lab at the edge of the town. Because it's very close to Ironforge, if there's anything missing or you need a job, you can probably just head in there. The standard of living, and I would say it's probably one of the better places to live, because it's proximity to everything else. For safety, there are of course no walls, and very few guards. But for the fact that it's in the middle of Thundermar, purely Alliance-controlled zone, and also extremely close to the city of Ironforge, I rate it higher than average. Throwing this village in to B tier. Just a bit north, head to Iron, the next city on the list. And the first thing I gotta say, this is probably the safest city in the entire game. It's literally located inside a mountain, with only one entrance. And this entrance is defended by a ginormous gate. So first and foremost, safety is a pure 10 out of 10 and going inside. You have everything you could ask for. Hundreds of houses, tons of living space, the largest forge in any city in the entire game, an auction house, a flight path, a bank. They even have their own museum. And I have to mention the safety once again, because inside Ironforge they even have their own tank production facility. So even if anyone attacked the city, they could just roll out tanks to defend it. And on top of that, I'm pretty sure Ironforge is the only city in the entire game that has never fallen to the enemy. So for that, being the safest city in the game, and also having pretty much anything you could ask for, the largest forge, which probably creates hundreds of jobs for normal people, a tank factory, and more, I will give this an S tier place to live. Next place, Fuse Light Bay, a small goblin village made up of 6 buildings and a harbor, most being residential, but they still have an inn. And I gotta compliment the inn, because there's a random NPC goblin here with a literal Thunder Fury, so they will get a bonus point on the safety. But this place is kinda lacking in mailbox and a forge, but the problem is there's no flight path here, and you gotta walk here manually. But I can imagine, because it's a bay, you could probably use a boat to get over here. On the living standard place, all the houses are very small, but it has an inn, so on living standards I would put it as a bit lower than average. There's only one way into the village, and it's pretty far away from any danger. But still, there's no guards and no wall. And also on top of that, the whole village is filled with bombs and explosive sheeps. So if someone accidentally set it off, you might die. So just for that, I will put it in D tier, just below average. Now heading to Fuse Light. Not the bay, but the actual city on top of the mountain. And surprisingly, the city is actually smaller than the bay. But what does it contain? Couple of residential and a shop house. And also an observatory. But unlike the other place, it actually has a flight path. And it also has a forge and a mailbox. Other than that, it's not much to say. I would rate standard of living is pretty average at a C tier. And safety, it would be slightly above average due to it being safely tucked up on a mountain with only one way up and also plenty of guards. So the final score is C tier. Next up, go to Lakeshshire, small fishing village in the middle of Red Ridge Mountain, made up of 6 buildings, 1 stable, 1 inn, 1 government building, and 3 small normal residential buildings. This place is just by the seafront with some farms on the edge, and a lot of fishermen work here. And walking around, everyone got quite large houses, and I would guess the standard of living here is quite good. But on the safety front, it's not as good. Because just around the corner, you might remember there's a horde base and the hill right above them, there's also a lot of hostile NPCs, so I have to throw it into D tier. Next up, Harborage, a small Draenei village made up of only 2 houses, but still counts, and both of them being residential. And looking inside the village, it's very messy and unhygienic, putting it at a very low living standard, on top of it being in the middle of absolutely nowhere. But on safety, I would also rate it pretty low, due to the only defense, a small wall of sharp sticks. I'm gonna throw this into E tier. Next up, Bog Pedal, a small little goblin village. And as it goes with most goblin village, they're not the most pleasant place to live. Not only because it's full with rockets and bombs, but also because the houses are pretty unhygienic. Going through it, it has a harbor, it has a flight path, a forge, and most amenities you'd probably need. And also for safety, it's surrounded by an entire wall on all sides except the water, of course. As most players, pretty average. On safety, I would rate it actually also pretty average. Yes, it has nice walls and guards, but it's in the middle of a very dangerous zone. So if you're inside, you're good, but if you go outside, you're still in a lot of danger. So I would put it quite squarely into C tier. Next up, in the middle of Duskwood, you will find Darkshire, a quite scary looking village with large and nice houses with plenty of living space and its own forge and government building. Going through the town, you'll find that most houses have plenty of space to live, but one of the problems is that it all looks very run down. So for that, I would say standard of living is a bit below average. But for safety, I would also say it's below average due to the town being burned down in the campaign, and also there being NPCs like Stitches running around and killing people left and right. And there's no wall to the town, so it's even less safe. I would put it into E tier. Next up, Eastern Logging Camp, a surprisingly large village with 6 houses, 4 of them being residential, 1 a logging house, and 1 horse training. And I gotta tell you, for standard of living, it's very good. With plenty of farms around, plenty of jobs, and they even have their own stable, as I said. And just across the road, you can also find a guard tower. So standard living above average. But for safety, there's no walls and no real guards besides the people patrolling the road. And as I said, the tower across the road. This is a friendly zone with no hostile places. Both things are over average, and it's very close to a big city like Stormwind. I'll put it into B tier, slightly above average. Now going over to Goldshire, a very small village with only an inn and a forge. But it still has most of the amenities a city would need, like the profession trainers, flight path, and the forge I just mentioned. And also, the Dark Moon Fair is in Goldshire. Just going inside, everything is pretty nice, but it's nothing special. And the standard living would just put in average. Also, safety. Due to it being outside of Stormwind and the constant Alliance army patrols, I would say it's a lot better than average. It's a very small town, the safety is above average. So I would put it in B tier. Next up on the list, Stormwind City. Probably the biggest city in the entire game. And it has obviously everything you could ask for. Every shop, multiple auction house, multiple banks, every profession trainer too, a military camp, a whole harbor where they can produce ships, and also an entire mage tower. So for standard living, there's no denying the fact it's very high. Due to the city having only one main entrance by land, it would be very safe, because there's no real way to attack it without going there, if you don't want to go behind it and enter through the harbor, which would also be excessively difficult. But the city has been burned down once before, so it's not impossible. So due to it being burned down once before, the safety isn't as high as a lot of other places, so I would put it into A tier. But I need to remind you, the standard of living is still one of the highest. It's just the safety isn't the top. Next up, the Booty Bay, a pirate hideout, a bay in the middle of mountains. And I gotta say, it's kind of a nasty place. Trash everywhere, nothing being truly built correctly, the walls are pretty much falling apart. So for standard living, quite bad. But after all, this is a pirate hideout. But for safety, I would put it pretty high, due to it having guards literally everywhere. And also not being able to be attacked on any side. The only entrance being a small cave. But still, the standard of living is low, but safety is high. I would average it out and put it in C tier. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe or like. Farewell.